Welcome to We'd Rather Be Reading. I'm Jerrica.
And I'm Lia.
Och vi kan prata svenska idag.
Oh yes, we're going Swedish.
Yes.
This part is going svenska.
But we didn't know.
We didn't know.
And it was only until a little part in the book where the male main character meets his family and his mom is Swedish. And he speaks Swedish and she speaks Swedish. And there's a lot of Swedish in the book, and also
there's a lot of this author having read about Sweden on the internet and never been to Sweden and used Google Translate to find words and then threw them in this book. That's what this is.
There's also two narrators, one for the, because it's dual perspective, so one for the female MC and one for the male MC, and one of them knows how to pronounce the Swedish words correctly, really. And the other one doesn't, because they say...
No. Neither one of them knows how to pronounce it. They say sötnos, which is sötnos. And by the way, I would assume that they Googled what is sweetheart in Swedish and got sötnos.
Yeah.
Not realizing that this is not ever something you would call an adult.
An adult, no, it's like, for a child.
Ever.
But when the mom says it to the kid,
I understand. Even to the kid, like, I have not heard sötnos been used on an adult person, like even when it's your child. It's not something that you would do. It's like cutesy, like it's not sweetheart. It's very much like like something you will call to a child. Regardless, we've read Only When It's Us by Chloe Liese, and Chloe writes romances reflecting her belief that everyone deserves a love story, hence there's now disabilities in every book of hers, right?
I love it.
Her stories pack a punch of heat, heart, and humor, and often feature characters who are neurodivergent like herself. When not dreaming up her next book, Chloe spends her time wandering in nature, playing soccer, and most happily at home with her family and mischievous cats.
That makes sense, because there's a female main character, plays soccer, and it was actually correct, all of the soccer information. Not that you would know, but
I would have no clue. They had a ball, they were on grass, they were goals. This was like, I was like, yeah, there's soccer stuff happening. Okie dokie. Don't care.
But I really like this book. The main character is a very, like, I would say normal girl. Well, she's athletic. She's an athlete, right? So she has an athlete body, but she has messy hair. She's sweaty. She's hungry all the time because she's an athlete. And she's also has only a mother and no siblings. And you could feel that connection with her mom. And her mom is dying from cancer. And her mom was in the army before. And it turns out that the mom knows the male main character's father. Mm-hmm. And that story I really liked. And how she handled everything too. Now, the male main character, he is half Swedish, half American, and his dad is a doctor and was also a doctor in the army and lost a part of his leg when the car went over an IED back in Afghanistan, and it was the female main character's mom that saved his leg.
Yeah, I mean,
and they have a shit ton of kids.
I would say she's not a normal girl, because... No, our main girl, Willa, she does not connect at all with her emotions. She's afraid of fucking everything. She likes to have just casual sex. She makes sure she has no one close to her. She's moody to a fucking fault. I would hate to be around her, because for someone who's like, I'm hungry, where he has to throw her... Like, he has to look out for her needs like she's a fucking child all the time. Like, no. Honestly, I was surprised when she started talking about sex stuff. I'm like, why is she talking about sex? She's a child. I literally saw these characters as like 14-year-olds. And it was really hard in my head to get back to, okay, they're in college. They're like in their 20s. Because they came across as so young.
I did not
in the beginning of this book. Like, I was like... Why are they thinking sexy thoughts? These are children. Stop it. And it was...
What? Yeah. How on earth did you get to that? That's so strange.
Oh my god. I felt like they were so young. Like young.
No, it didn't feel
whenever
young
they talked to each other, like,
all.
I was like, they're so young. I'm like,
in fact, he felt so much older.
I think it was the way she said mama. which really, really, like,
Is it
Mama.
Okay.
I felt like
when people say daddy, I also think that that's very childish.
Yeah. I think it was the way she said, Mama.
But I have adult friends
mama.
that call their dad daddy still, even at this age. So it still happens.
Yeah, but I understand that. But I think it was the way she said, Mama, that was it just came across as so young for me. And his shyness and not speaking, I'm like, they feel so young.
But he was not speaking.
No,
and he was all
sense
burly,
there,
bearded. How is he a teenager to you?
I don't know.
If he
It
has
was like
this
the
burly
beginning
beard?
of it. That was like, it came across. And then I had to struggle to wrap my mind around the fact that, like, I had to remind myself that they were older all the time, which made it really weird. Like, all the sexy thoughts she had, I was like, ugh, child. Okay, no. Okay, she's grown up.
Okay, well, you don't have to think like that because they were not even remotely close to being children. In fact, the reason why he didn't talk was because he cannot hear because he got meningitis. And as a side effect from the meningitis, he has hearing issues. But he's not deaf completely. He is just hearing impaired. And
he's refusing to speak.
Yeah. Because he doesn't know what he's going to sound like or if he's going to speak properly. And I understood that. And I thought that was also realistic. And I have friends in college that were athletes and they act very much like her. They're very self-involved people. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be around their sport and just getting by in school. And that's why she needed him to help her with the notes and stuff. So yeah, she's needy and self-involved and pushes everyone else away because she's so focused on her athletic career.
It wasn't because of the athletic career though. It was because she was losing her mom and she was like guarding her heart and all of this and that. And I mean, I get it. They explain it. But I don't know. I don't know enough about hearing impairment. But I feel like if you've been talking for the first, 18, 19 years of your life, and then you lose your hearing, to not communicate at all with any kind of words or sounds, to just shut yourself down like so completely. I don't know. It's
a part of grief, right? And it's like
maybe
PTSD
but
from loss and stuff like that.
Extremely kind of not strong, but like stubborn in a way to keep it up.
Sure, but that is realistic too, and people would be like that. Whether or not you could be like, get over yourself. It's like, well, it doesn't work like that in people's brains all the time.
No, fair enough. And then I mean, and I think that the issues that they were talking about in this, like how Willa was dealing with her fear of getting attached to people and closing off her heart from her relationship or non-relationship with her dad, and the fact that she only had her mom, and like she was closing herself off to love because she just doesn't want to be hurt. And the way he is reacting with this, I mean, it was well written and it was very well described, and just for him, the way she was with him, she was very understanding, but almost like ridiculously so, like a bit too perfect in the way she was always like not judging him, always speaking like very clearly and like showing her his face and all of this and that. I just felt like for someone like Willa, who is so self-involved, it was kind of deviating from her character in a little bit. Her caring about like the way she was always conscious of how he couldn't hear her and stuff.
Yeah, but she didn't know the whole story. That's why she was being patient, because she was waiting for him to tell her like exactly why he is the way that he is. But she notices here and there like, oh, but I think he can hear me a little bit because he reacted this way or that way. And I thought that was quite touching. Now, they were put together because of a school project.
Yeah.
So
because of a meddling brother-in-law.
Yeah. But that's why they were together so often. So it wasn't that she was being overly patient with him. It's that she was being forced to
but she was being not overly, but I mean, he appreciated it, but she was very like, I think there should, in a way, I'm just thinking of myself, there's usually a learning curve to, oh, this person can't hear properly, I need to speak slowly and I need to show them my face. I would probably mess up a few times before doing it, naturally with this person all the time. Whereas for her, it was just like, oh, he can't. Then I need to do this. Oh, it's only there.
Sorry, Raven. You have to cut that out.
Raven.
Rude, baby. That was very rude. She's happy about
Better
it.
out than in, I say. But yeah, no, he's got hearing issues. She's got mommy. No, she's got like issues with letting people in, letting people close, with opening her heart to people.
Right, but she has a best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And the best friend sort of whips her into shape at some point, too, and says, like, listen, bitch, so see what's around you kind of thing.
Yeah.
But she develops a real relationship with this guy, and then it inspires him and encourages him to figure a way to get better mentally and also within his hearing aspect, too, and goes to the doctors and tries to see if there's any new ways for him to be able to hear better. And I thought it was so touching, like, the way that he got to hear her for the first time and when things were closer. And then even the way that the writer, like, made them in their sex scenes where she brought a mirror so that he could see what she was saying or how she was feeling and stuff like that. So they were communicating during sex even without him being able to hear her. I thought that was really creative, actually. And then the whole story that goes around the mom. You know how I feel about miscommunication and, like, couples who don't talk to each other. Yeah. It drives me nuts, especially in books. Mm-hmm. And
she runs away from every conversation, Willa. Like, she's ridiculous with this. Like, she runs from every conversation.
And so she doesn't even tell him that her mom is dying. She tells him that her mom lives close, but really she lives in a hospital because she's dying from cancer. And the mom doesn't even tell her, like, listen, honey, I'm at the point of I'm not going to make it past Christmas kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And the mom wasn't open with her about that either until the very end. And at the very end, not of the story, but of the mother's life, she moves in with the male MC's family because it was the father that she saved the life of before, and he's a doctor, an oncologist for her. So he says, come, instead of living in a hospital for your last few days, come and live in our basically guest house on our property and we'll take care of you because it's the least
in the house, but
least I could do.
Yeah. And I mean,
and that's where she finds out that that's even his family because he doesn't tell her, hey, your mom's coming to live with me.
And then when she finds out by going out and actually running into him in his own house, she's so angry with him. Like, and it's so out of proportion. My comment for this is like, Willa should just fucking let Ryder talk to her because she's angry. He hasn't said anything about his family and her mom living with them, but she did not fucking give him any chances to do this. Like, he tries so hard to talk to her and she just won't answer his text, won't see him person, won't, like, she
that was a weird thing that happened when he's trying to reach out to her and she just shuts down. But she's shutting down because she was having her mom die within, like, that week.
No, that was not that. That was when she was moving in, when she finds it out that she's living with Ryder. And he's been trying to talk to her, like, since before the mom even moved into the house. He's been trying to talk to her, and she just won't let him.
No.
And she's
because she wants to focus on what she has to finish with, and that was her soccer games and her exams and stuff like that. And then my next
comment is, Ryder should let her go. She's so fucking immature. This is my...
Okay, but they are very young. They're 21 years old. Yeah. But I think that Ryder, his, like, personality, we're so close with his, like, family and his mom and dad that were, like, the one for each other for their whole life. Mm-hmm. He also is this, like, I'm in love with her and she's gonna be, like, one and done kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But then when he cuts his beard off and then girls start to flirt with him again, not that he does anything about it, but it's like, does that happen? Like, if a guy chops his beard off and then all of a sudden it's oh, but this guy.
I'm sure it does. Unfortunately, I'm sure it does.
Even though you found her annoying and you thought that she didn't communicate at all, she has this little quirk or quip or whatever you call it, where she has an inability to keep her thoughts inside her head.
Like every other fucking book. How many books have we read about the people not being able to keep their fucking thoughts in their heads?
But she rambles outside of her own head, and he can't really hear her, so he just sees her, like, rambling in the kitchen, and I thought that's so funny. Like, could you imagine this girl just talking to herself in the kitchen? You're like, what a weirdo girl.
Yeah, but then also with that, she does it all the time, and then he's playing around with his hearing aids, and he actually has one in, and he can hear her, and then she's like, oh, he's doing this to me, and he didn't even tell me. It's like, Yeah, and you talked out loud. Like, anyone with normal hearing would have been able to hear you. So, maybe mind your fucking mouth. Like, stop being angry with Ryder for, working on himself. Like, no, I really did not like her. She pissed me off to no fucking
But she
extent.
says hilarious things. So she says aching chucha, which I thought was so funny. And then when he says his name and she gets sidetracked and jumps him and then remembers she's mad at him. It's because for the first time she hears him. She calls him a Yuletide wet dream. There's so many things that make me love her so much. Her banter and inability to keep her thoughts is hilarious. And then she says after saying something, them's the facts. It's like I want to be friends with her. I really liked her a lot.
I did not like her at all. I found her to be so annoying.
Okay.
So annoying.
Totally different opinions on this book.
Yeah, and Ryder. Honestly, can we talk a little bit about the Sweden parts of this book?
Sure.
Because, Chloe, you're welcome to come and visit Sweden. We will show you around and we will tell you what it's actually like.
And we'll also introduce you to all the men in Sweden that are called Niklas, Matthias.
Yeah, none of them is called Ryder.
No one is called Ryder.
Also, she's like the northern part of Sweden. When Ryder's dad tells the story of how he met his mom, and the mom's Swedish, Ellen, that is a Swedish name. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
He goes like, "Oh, the northern parts of Sweden is not very, very populated. There's no cities out there." I'm like, yeah, there's no North American sized cities out there.
No.
For Sweden, there's quite a few cities that are decently sized for Sweden up north, and and he makes it seem like there's restaurants, like a hole-in-the-wall restaurant up there. I'm like, where? Where would you find this? No. And then the Christmas. Let's talk about Swedish Christmas here, because, oh my fucking God.
It was nothing.
Tell me one family in Sweden who puts flags on their tree.
Oh, no.
No one. No. We don't put flags on our tree. That's the Norwegians. When I lived in Montreal, we celebrated Christmas we had Swedish Christmas, and we had to celebrate at the Norwegian church because there was no Swedish church. And there was a Norwegian Christmas tree there, and they had freaking flags all over their tree, which we used to make fun of because it's a stupid fucking tradition, which no one in Sweden does. Okay. We don't put flags on our trees. We also don't hang gingerbread cookies in our trees.
Kids' gingerbread cookies. We had them as a thing from their daycare.
But not really on the tree.
It was a tree decoration, but it was not something that you'd get a box of gingerbread cookies, put holes in them, and hang them on the tree.
Ryder drinking glögg with his Christmas food. I'm like, no one does that.
No.
Glögg is something you drink before eating. You do not drink glögg with food. That would be disgusting.
That glögg is disgusting, and they also mispronounce it too. But
they said glögg, which is not true. It's glögg.
Glögg, I think.
Yeah, glögg, and you don't drink it with food. You do not drink glögg with food. No,
it's like a warm, sweet wine.
It's mulled wine.
Yeah, it's warm wine.
But I have to say, to this book's credit, this author has read the Laura Thalassa Guide to How to Have Sex. because there was so much missionary with eye contact going on here. All of the eye contact.
There was a lot of eye contact. And I have read 2 other books in the series afterwards because they're audiobooks and it was easy to just switch into. Plus, I really liked this family a lot. They have 7 kids, and they're all super close, and one of them is Moody, so I read his story next, and he's like an artist.
Soren?
No, Soren was a hockey player, where the family didn't even care about because it was in the NHL, and they're like, oh, we care about soccer more. But I thought, but you're half Swedish, and Swedes really appreciate hockey. Sure, football too, but football and hockey are both up there in sports in Sweden, so I didn't understand why they didn't support his career at all, considering he also made it to the NHL, and they don't even go and watch any of his games.
That is mean. That makes the family mean. I don't like that. I'm surprised, honestly, a little bit like in how you were surprised by my reaction to the Rory book. I'm a little bit surprised by your reaction to this book. Because there was so much lack of communication. Like, no one was fucking talking to anyone in this book. Like, Ryder was trying to talk to Willa, but Willa was having none of it. Like, she was not talking to him at all. Like anytime he wanted to have a conversation, she would literally freaking run away.
Yeah, there was a lot of running away because they weren't even really in a relationship.
No.
And it was kind of messy until the end. What I did like about the end of this book is that it didn't sum it up to the point of where they then have, they get married and they get engaged and then they have babies and all that kind of stuff. It just ends with them dating, and she gets accepted to one of the pro soccer teams, and they end up moving north. And he starts to do his own thing with his forestry, whatever stuff.
But it ends with forever, which I hate.
Why?
Because it's so stupid.
Okay, thank you for that analysis.
You're welcome. It was my most eloquent one today. No, but it's just like with forever, when it's like, and then we were going to be, he was my forever. And I'm like, yeah, sure, but you wouldn't even talk to him. And there's so many things that were just shitty for you, and that you, and when he's like, I knew I loved you from that first time you scowled at me. I'm like, sure you did. And then he's like, oh, when I fall in love forever like my dad. I'm like, yeah, because we're all like our parents. I don't know. Like, I don't like this. Like, I think I was
so swoony over it. I thought that he was so sweet, and I really liked that she was so patient with him and his disability, and then that it was like her voice that like brought him back to life. I thought it was very romantic.
But I think that's my problem, because I think this goes in whenever there's forever, it triggers the same thing as like the mating bond for me.
Okay,
like,
but I love mating bond.
Because I think it's like, yeah, I loved you from first sight and we're gonna now be together forever because you are the one for me. It's like, yeah, these are cute things to say, but marriages and relationships they're not something that just happens to you. Like, it's something you have to work on always, and it's something that's like, you should continue to. I prefer the books and stuff where they're like, I will continue to choose you every day, because that means that you're actually liking someone when you make that choice and you choose someone every single day, instead of just saying the first day, that's it, choice done. Okay, now it's forever.
But this is basically just a story about how their romantic relationship started. And you can have all of the doubt you want about how it's going to end, but they don't say how it's going to end.
Oh, no, they say forever.
Yeah, but they're still dating in the next few books. But they're not married. There's not like some weird fantasy story time where they have like 6 kids live in some house in the woods kind of thing. It doesn't end up like that.
We know it's going to end up there.
Okay, but you can have all of your cynical, kids. They're going to divorce in this
and then
big...
they're going to divorce, and she's going to die of cancer. No.
Yeah, exactly that. Okay, now we know how Lia sees the future. No one can ever be happy. There will never be one person. Meanwhile, Lia's been married for 18 fucking years. But no, there's not one person for you.
Yeah, Rain agrees with me. She's like, no happily ever after.
Okay, well, today I feel optimistic about a happily ever after, and Lia doesn't. And neither does Raven.
She says no. I heard her.
She, in fact, says nay.
No, she said nay. She agrees with me. No happily ever after. Exactly. All right. We're gonna go and take care of baby, so listen in for next week when we're gonna read Full Tilt, which I predict will be sad. So read along with us, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye. We'd Rather Be Reading is an original podcast by Jerrica and Lia Sanfö. The music for The Penguins, written and performed by David Allred from the album The Transition, courtesy of Erased Tapes. Please check him out on Spotify and check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at We'd Rather Be Reading, and on Twitter at We'd Rather Read. You can also email us at we'dratherbereadingthepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.